Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Quisha King Show, where we explore faith, culture, and politics for the next generation. I am your host, Quisha King, and today my very special guest is a wife, an educator, and the mother of a child with autism. She is also the co-founder of Putting the Pieces Together, which is a free nonprofit support group for families with children and adults with special needs. It is a soft place to fall for families from every background who need support, resources, and understanding without judgment. Ladies and gentlemen, I would love to introduce to you Donique Rolle.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so honored to have you. I am a mother of a special needs child myself. And so I love what you're doing. And so there's a kindred spirit there with having children who have special needs. So if you would just kind of give us a little bit of background, where you're from, and what you're doing with putting the pieces together.
Okay. Well, I am originally from Miami. I love everything about Miami. But I actually moved from Miami to Orlando for a man. So
nothing wrong with it.
I actually was put on a blind date. A friend of mine set me up with my now husband of 18 years on a blind date, and we're both from Miami. But the funny thing is, I was actually in South Florida, and he was here in Orlando. And so we dated long distance, hit it off. The moment we talked, I knew he was the one. And then later on, he said the same thing, that the moment when we talked for like 2 hours, he knew that I was the one. So 6 months later, I packed my bag and moved to Orlando. We lived separately because we did have friends in Orlando. And then when I moved here, 4 months later, we were engaged and got married. So it took off like that. Yes.
Okay. Wait a minute. Okay. So I know we're gonna get to the education stuff. We're gonna get there. But we gotta talk about this. I mean, just because, first of all, family is super important. That is, family is everything. Were you nervous? Were you okay? So you talk and you're like, he's the one. He's like, I'm the one. Or he's like, he said that you were the one. I mean, were you, when you were like, okay, I'm going to move, what was like, you just, I just can't be without you. Like, what was it? How did you like make that?
Well, I had conditions. So South Florida is all I've ever known. And he is from South Florida, which is so funny. Yeah. But I had conditions. My conditions was, because I knew the conversation was going to come. Either he was going to move back to South Florida, or I was going to move to Orlando. And so I prayed, and I something in my gut said, my spirit said, okay, he's going to ask you to move. So you need to be prepared. What are you going to do? So this is all before he asked me. In my head, I'm thinking, okay, so he's most likely going to ask me to move. So I need to see if this is what I want to do. But I had conditions. So the moment when he asked me, I was nervous and everything, but I had decided in my heart, okay, you know what? If he asks me to move, I'm going to move, because I am in love and I see a future. But my conditions was, and I asked him, I said, so am I moving just so we can see how it goes? Or am I moving because you are wanting to take this to the next level? And so he said that he wanted to take this to the next level. So there I went. I'm not going to just move just to date. We were dating long distance, fine. So I'm going to move if you're planning on marriage. So, because that's what I'm thinking. And I want to know if you're thinking that as well. Right. I'm saying my whole life was in South Florida. So I'm not just going to randomly pack up. So it was a lot of things to consider. Yeah. I had a job. I had a good job. Yeah. But here's what's interesting. I lost my job. But I had a good amount of savings, so I could have, picked up and start over. But this is when I was just teetering on, should I go? Should I not? Should I go? And I think God was like, let me make this perfectly clear. You're going to lose your job. They're going to lay you off. And that's what happened. And then I think 2 months later is when he asked me. Clear. But I was I was temping. But I was temping on purpose because I had a feeling that it was going to come up. So I was like, I don't want to take another job right away, just in case he asked me to move soon. So it was strategic.
You have to, I believe that. I think I am divorced, unfortunately, but I believe that when you are dating, I'm a woman of Christian faith. I think you're a believer as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay. So, as Christian women, we want to be found, we, because he who finds a wife finds a good thing and finds
a good
favor with
thing.
the Lord, and we believe that thing.
Yes.
But sometimes we don't set ourselves up to be found or are ready to do like what you did, getting things in place. Okay, I love him, he loves me. This is where there's gonna have to be a decision made at some point where I move, or he moves, and you were strategically putting those
yes, before
place.
he even asked, I had already decided, okay, I would be the one to move. So
I think that is very wise. I think that is very wise, and I think that's smart. I think that's smart to do when you're like, okay, we're gonna be raising a family together. Obviously, somebody's got to do something. So, oh my gosh, I think that's really cool.
Yes, and then 5 years later, I was pregnant with my first and only child, who has special needs. He has autism. That was a whole a whirlwind right there. Like I remember when he was first diagnosed, I just spent probably a good 6 months, maybe like 4 months in depression, like was super depressed.
Really?
And I had always heard that this will either make or break your marriage. And a lot of people were divorcing because they just couldn't handle it. But it actually brought us, together. We were tighter than we've ever been. So we just refused to look at divorce or even consider that. And we just decided we're going to work it together, because there's a lot of marriages fail because of it. That actually inspired me to start my organization, putting the pieces together. I actually started it in the midst of my depression because I couldn't find any help. And so I felt like God was pushing me to like, okay, you got to get out of this. You have to get out of it. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. And so I needed support. I couldn't find it. So then I started researching and finding things on my own. Me and another friend who also has a son with autism, we just started finding these resources. And we just said, hey, why don't we just bring everything in one spot, like speakers, resources, and then invite other people to come along with us. And it was truly probably out of a selfish reason because we wanted the help. And so then we figured, you know what, since we're getting help, let's just find out who else need help. And so 7 years later, we are powerful moms, powerful dads, and we just have a good time just loving up on each other, encouraging each other, supporting one another. The smallest victories is a huge deal. We celebrate those little small victories with our children. So yes.
That is incredible. You're just like an incredible woman. Like I had no idea. That is
that is my passion. Teaching is my second passion. My first passion, which I didn't know was going to be a passion. I feel like this is actually my calling, that God called me to do that, to help other families, which I would not have imagined that would be my purpose in a million years. So that is first. And then I always say teaching, which I love. And I love because I'm always tweeting about it. So that's my second passion.
Wow, that is really incredible. Most people, when you go through something like that, like depression, they can't even function. Many people, and I guess that's, it's
and there were times I didn't. I was just there and just crying.
But you managed to find a way to fight out of that. That is really encouraging. That is really encouraging. I hope anybody who's listening to this, who is going through depression or any type of mental illness, that there is there is still a fight in you. There is still a spark there that you can do something, even if it's, writing every day or whatever it is that gets you out of, just in your head all the time and thinking about these things. I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, so I know depression can be very difficult, and I don't want to make it sound like it's easy or anything, but I really commend you for that. My gosh, that is
Thank you.
that is a hard thing to do. So wow, that is incredible. No wonder your husband loves you so much. My God, you're just incredible. That's awesome.
Yes.
So tell us more about I actually lived in Miami for a little bit too. For about 7 years actually.
Really? What part?
North Miami near Biscayne Avenue.
I'm from Overtown.
Yep. Huh? Wait, what did you say?
I'm from Overtown.
No way. Girl.
Yes.
We used to go there for breakfast at I think
Johnson's Diner.
That's it. Yeah. Oh my God, they had the best breakfast.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. But so going from Miami to Orlando, and just the landscape of Orlando is still pretty. It's not like Jacksonville. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida now, and that's just a lot more behind. But Miami to Orlando. Is it similar? Was that similar or
no? Okay. But actually, after Miami, I moved to Delray Beach and Boca Raton area for a few years. So that kind of, I think that if I had gone from Miami to Orlando, I would have just been in culture shock, because it's night and day different. So Boca Raton and Delray kind of prepared me for Orlando, because it was a lot slower. Yeah. And then I found Orlando to be even slower until I started finding, the iDrive and that type of thing. But I didn't live on that side of town. I lived where it's a lot slower. So it's night and day different.
Yeah. So, yeah. When we moved to Jacksonville, I did not want to raise my children in Miami. I was like, there's no way.
Yeah, I can't even. Going back there, I can't even imagine. So this was the best decision.
Yeah. So, how old is you have a son, right?
Yes, he's 13.
He's 13. So 13. Is he in public? My youngest daughter is
private. He was in public school all throughout elementary. I actually cannot complain about my experience with special needs in the public school system, but I know too many parents that can, and they're friends of mine. They just, and so that was part of which I'm very fortunate to have had my group at that particular time while he was in elementary, because I was able to help them find resources like private schools for their kid, or just therapy, or teach them how to advocate. So different things like that, lawyers and how that all worked. But I was fortunate. I don't know why was I so fortunate, but he had great teachers, great support. And he was in both worlds. He wasn't in the autism class. He was in mainstream, but they actually had two teachers in the class, like a regular teacher and then an ESC teacher. And she would do like a pull-out, not out of the classroom, but at a small table with a few other students. I can't complain. But I took him out of public school because middle school, no, there's no support. It would have just been a horrible situation. I was in my last IEP meeting because I was trying to decide what public school we were going to go to, and I just hated all the options. And so I'm like, why did I feel, why this is not the end all of the end all? Like, there's other options, Donique, get over it. So then I start looking into other alternatives. So he's in private school now, which is the best decision that I think that I've made so far as the schooling. So my youngest daughter, early on, the public schools were really great. She actually, when we lived in Miami, she got amazing therapy. I think honestly, Miami, living there and the options that were there for therapy were some of the best. Some of the best care that she had ever received. It was actually moving to Jacksonville. I was like, I don't know what y'all are doing.
I can do better than this. So I
Right.
was like,
It's funny. With my support group, I had a family that would drive to Orlando to come to my support group because she said she couldn't find many things, and she ended up coming to Orlando for a lot of her kids' therapy.
wow.
Which I was like, and
Yeah.
she was from Jacksonville. Yeah.
I'm just trying to tell. It was awful. I was like, what are you? It was like they had no clue what they were doing.
Right.
So I think that helped my daughter early on. It certainly helped her early on. And so she was in kindergarten, first and second grade. She was she was in the set aside, special needs classes, but she was on the general curriculum. So she was on the general curriculum, and then third grade, I believe that's right when, if I remember correctly, that's right when Common Core came in.
Yes.
And I mean, she just did not do well, and the teacher that she had at the time was awful.
Wow.
And so I'm one of those parents. So I've always been like this. So this ain't new. Like outspoken, they used to, oh, Miss King, this meeting is not going to last as this long. Oh, no,
you're like, this is not just for TV. This is, I've always been
yeah. They were trying to tell me that the meeting wasn't going to last as long as I needed it to, for her IEP meetings. And at this point, I had, there was just so many things wrong. I was like, no, we need a district meeting because this is, so it was like escalating. And they were trying to tell me like, basically what I felt like was that she was just a number to them. They were not interested in her getting the education that I knew, obviously, that she deserves and every child deserves, but something that was going to be beneficial for her. I felt like they just wanted to stick her in a corner and have her put balls in a basket all day. And I'm like, this kid can read, write, do math. She's competent. Like she can do this stuff. And that third grade teacher, one day we were having a conference, and she was just so disconnected. And like people that work in special needs, teachers, therapists, there's a certain spirit that most of these people come with. It's very loving and caring.
Yeah, they want to be there, right?
Yeah. And I said, I'm sorry. I said, do you have kids? Like, I mean, it was just that bad that she was so. I had never experienced that before. Yeah, it was awful. I was like, oh no, she's out of here. So fortunately, we live in Florida where there is school choice. So I was able to move her to a private. Yes, I am so grateful because looking at into her eyes every day, because she used to love school, she was loving school, and then it just tanked.
Yeah.
And it was like, it wasn't there anymore. And so being, watching her thrive in the school on day one, Donique, day one, my kid was nonverbal in school. She spoke on the first day in this private school.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
She whisper, but she spoke.
It's funny you said that because my son is, he's considered nonverbal. And he's always had a device, but at the private school that he's in, he is talking up a storm. And he was recently in a winter concert where he was singing, and I was in tears because I'm like,
know
he doesn't talk, he doesn't, and now he won't shut up. He is like talking, and they understand him. And so I'm just like, I don't know what happened or what that school did. And I had a great experience in the public school system, but he was not trying to talk in public school. But with this school, he's very verbal.
Yeah,
so
that
it's
is
exciting.
Amazing. That is so amazing. I have a little theory. I think that because, in public school, you can't really hug children. You can't, it's like strict rules. My daughter, she's a hugger. She's
Mine
a hugger.
too.
She likes it. I think she felt comfortable because they were like, when she came in, they wrapped their arms around her like, oh, come on, let's go to class. And, they were just a bit more
personal.
Yeah. Personal. Yes. Thank you. That's the right word. So that's my theory. I think she just felt, honestly, just a bit more
comfortable.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes. And that's important, really important.
Yeah. So it is so, I love hearing, these success stories. And especially with our special needs kids, because I feel like, from birth, they're like poked and prodded on and like, trekked off to the doctor every week or whatever,
Right.
it's just a lot. And
Yes.
them not getting a good education when they absolutely deserve, like,
Deserve it.
they do.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our special needs children they might not get like some things, like maybe they don't get like 2+2. Maybe they don't understand that stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when you see like sometimes like the more advanced stuff that clicks with them, you're like, it's
Yes.
amazing. Like it's fascinating how, they are smart and beautiful in their own ways.
Yes.
And it just takes a great learning environment to bring that out. So what are some of the things that you've experienced, with public and private that, has really helped for your son to, other than being verbal now, like, do you see any differences in his like education or things that he's more interested in or things that have been brought out?
Yes, I do. Now the verbal thing is a
Oh, yes.
huge deal. But
Absolutely.
another thing, his handwriting.
Mm.
He in public school, and I'm just thinking what a difference a year made. And I don't know why, but you could not understand it. It was just all over the place. He couldn't write on the lines. His handwriting is better than some adults I've seen. His handwriting is definitely better than mine. I noticed that, and also it is interesting because as a public school teacher, I'm used to fast pace. If they don't get it, they move on. And
Mm.
so at first I had trouble with the rigor in
Mhm.
private school because again, I'm used to they go, like they move
Yeah.
to one chapter, they go to the next. And I was like,
Yeah.
why is this taking so long? And they're like, Miss, we want to make sure that he has the foundation
Mm.
because his learning is kind of everywhere. Like, how does he know synonyms, but he doesn't know this? How does he know this? Because what was happening in public school, he just had he would learn something, but not completely, and then they would move on to something else. He didn't master it, move on to
Gotcha.
something else, he didn't master. So he did have a taste of all of that, but he didn't
Mm.
master anything. And
Gotcha.
so with this school, I noticed that he's mastering things that I didn't know he didn't master.
Right.
He can write in essays now and paragraphs, and he didn't do that before. It was they
Wow.
had to kind of like help him every step of the way. But with this school, he's comprehending what he's reading, and he's able
Yeah.
to answer questions because they're like, no, we're not moving on. And I used to get frustrated because again, I'm thinking public school teacher, you
Right.
move on,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
like, no, he missed two. So we're going to make sure that he gets this, that we understand what he understands why he missed this before we
Yep.
move on to the next. And so that makes me happy that they are not just trying to take my money because I'm paying, but
Yeah.
they are serious about him learning and that they
Yeah.
care that they don't want any gaps in his learning, which I really appreciate that. Versus
Yeah.
public school, who cares about gaps? They're moving on. And so I
Yeah.
really, really do appreciate that about private school.
Yeah, that is so true. My oldest daughter, I just pulled her out. She's in a homeschool co-op now, which I am so grateful
Oh,
for. Yeah.
that's
So
great.
I've mass exited completely now. I'm done.
Wow.
I'm out. But
You're done. That's good.
yeah, it was awful. We'll
What do
put
you call it? Exit out. What do you
mass exodus.
mass exodus? Yes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
Yeah.
it.
So she went her first day, her teacher had her doing, kind of like an assessment just to see like where she was at.
Hmm.
And I knew she had gone and they were working on math. And I knew she had learned these things because I remember her learning them, but she couldn't really remember. And so her teacher was like, well, you have to master this before we can move you on. There's the only grade you can get here is an A. And she was like,
Hmm.
she's like, what do you she's like, no B's, no. She's like, no, you either know it or you don't. And I was like,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
love that. I mean,
Right.
why not? Why
Yes.
not? If you don't know it, you shouldn't really go on to the next thing until you get this
Hmm.
foundation, especially in math. It's a
Yes.
very,
Right. Right.
foundational thing. You have to know this before you know that. And
Hmm.
so, her eyes were like huge. She's like, oh my God, what does that mean? But she's picking it up. She's picking
That's
it up.
great.
So I believe
Right.
it's
And it doesn't
coming.
matter how long it takes her, they'll make sure she gets it. I love it. I love
Exactly.
it.
Girl, I am so thankful, that we, again, that for school choice, that we have these options like that are available, because so many people, so many states still don't have school choice. It is a
Wow.
real thing that
Mhm.
we talk a lot about gaps, like you had mentioned, and we talk about disparities and things like that, for Black children in particular.
Mhm.
And if there isn't an option for them, then
Mhm.
what are we really talking about?
Right.
If you're
Right.
not even trying to provide, to get legislation that could actually solve a lot of those problems, what
Mhm.
are we even talking about? Like, why
Right.
are we
Exactly.
even, let's not pretend like you care.
Right.
It's showing on every level that you don't. So
Right. And
that's
it
really,
actually, studies show that Black children do better in charter schools. They're graduating at a higher rate in charter school and at a
yeah,
higher rate in these homeschool ops. So
yeah.
why not? Like, I don't get why people are complaining about school choice. I'm like, that blows my mind. Like, if they're graduating at a higher rate and actually learning something in these charter schools, why not? Why are we fighting this? So
I think COVID revealed a lot about these school boards, and a lot about these teachers unions that were truly, that answers that question. I don't
yes.
think they really care about the children. I think
Mhm.
the children are the last thing that is on their
Right.
mind,
Oh, I agree. I agree.
because
I
there's,
agree.
you are upset that parents want to be involved in their children's education, and have legitimate concerns about some of
Mm-hmm.
these things that are being brought into the schools, and you now call us domestic terrorists because we are bringing I mean, that
That's
was
mind blowing.
bizarre.
Mind blowing. See, I'm that mama bear. I was, even though he had good situations, and I would pat myself on the shoulder to say that I had something to do with that, because when I tell you, we were always meeting and parent conferences, even if things
Yeah,
were well, because I want to know what you're doing. So I need the data. I need to see his test. I need to
right.
see work samples. I was that mom, and
Yeah,
so anytime we had a meeting, they made sure they had everything, because they knew. And it's funny, because any grade, they were like, "Oh yes, we heard about you, Miss Rolle. We have all of," like, they were very accommodating, because yes, because I'm that mom. And then when we transferred to a different school,
yeah,
saying, "Oh, we heard about you, Miss Rolle. Yes, yes." So they dotted all their I's.
yep,
And I
yeah,
wasn't rude, but I was just, you need to know my presence. I want you to feel my presence, and I'm going to be
right,
there
yeah,
every step of the way, even when things are going well. And I want to know why they're going well. So,
yeah.
so I knew
I'm
that
with
they were
you.
partly annoyed, but it's my job.
Oh,
So
well, I
here I
pay your
am.
salary. You work for me. I don't know, y'all, they got way too comfortable, thinking that, they forgot who they work for. They
Right.
forgot.
Oh,
You know,
I would bring in my son's therapist in our meeting, because he has behavior therapy. And so
mhm,
we're planning, we're part of this, planning the lessons, and
yeah.
this is what you can do, this is what you can do different, this is
Yep.
what he needs. And so it was just a collaborative effort. And I got pushed back 1 year, but they still did what I wanted, because this is my son. And so
That's
I
right.
don't care if your feelings are hurt because you think my therapist is mean.
Makes me know, never mind. I love her.
Right.
I think she's great.
We're gonna do this, and it's gonna be great.
Right.
So yes.
Yeah, I think that, you know what? I think that is something that parents need to remember too. So, parents out there, if you have these IEP meetings, bring your therapist. That's a really,
Mhm.
I never thought about that.
Oh, it's
But
great. It's
yeah, that's
great.
a really good,
Right,
that's
because
super helpful.
some of the verbiage you don't really understand, but they understand. And also, there's times where I couldn't think of anything different on the IEP, or anything
Mhm.
that needed to change in the classroom, but she saw from a different lens. She was like, "Well,
Right,
how about this? And could you try this? If this doesn't
right.
work." So she was always bringing in strategies, and she really helped shape the IEP. And so
Yeah.
I bring her everywhere,
That is awesome. I
every
never thought
year.
about it. I
Yeah.
think that would be really helpful for parents who have children with IEPs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Speaking of gaps and Black and brown children in education. You are a African American studies teacher. Is that
history? African American history teacher.
Okay.
For 9th grade. It's the same thing.
Okay.
Same thing.
What is that? Did you go into education to teach that, or did you like sort of land there through some other process? Or tell us how you became.
No, actually, I taught reading, intensive reading for years, and that was the over 10 years. And then the school that I am now, my former assistant principal, he's a white gay man, super liberal, which is funny. It was his idea to bring in African American history into my school because we had it once before years ago, and they took the program out. And he just thought it made sense to have something that the kids would be encouraged. And his thought process behind it was he actually said this: I don't want students to feel like victims. And he's a liberal gay guy. Like, I want them to feel inspired and encouraged by their history.
Yeah.
And then later on that's what he said. But then he really wanted something else. But that's what he said. So I took that and I ran with it. And so I actually, my major in college was history, and I minored in African American history. And so when he asked me, I jumped into it.
Yeah. So with the of course, all of the talk about critical race theory, that was like my speech before the Board of Education. That's where I first started. I went viral or whatever. And there's a lot of pushback against that. A lot of people say that, there's a couple things. It's not really being taught. You don't want Black American history to be taught. Those are probably the most common things.
Right, that they're trying to get rid of Black history. And someone tweeted online that DeSantis is trying to get rid of Black history with his new program.
Yeah, I was like, that is the furthest thing from, I would never even support anything like that. Like, I don't believe that Black American history should not be taught. In fact, I believe that I believe that more Black American history should be taught with an emphasis on the positive Black American history, because I think that our children do not know they know the struggles, but they don't know the victory at the end of the doggone struggle. It wasn't, we just weren't slaves and then Jim Crow
and civil rights movement.
That trek. It's like, do you not understand? I don't think people realize just how far behind Black Americans were, and the progress that we made in such a short time. It is unprecedented. People around the world were astonished at the amount of progress that we had made. I want children to know that.
Exactly. Right. So, now,
it is insulting when I hear people say, "Oh, you just don't want history to be taught." It's like, that is so far from the truth. And I don't even, I haven't met anyone that wants that. And I don't deal with people who would want that. And so, that is just insulting to me. But with the critical race theory thing, have you seen it in your classrooms? Have you experienced, have you seen it floating around your schools or in the Orlando area? Have you?
Not like what I've been seeing on the news. Like, anytime you guys post examples in a classroom, I'm always blown away, because I'm like, people are really saying this, and not that anyone's lying, because I see it. Like, I see video recordings. I'm like, who are these teachers? Like, I have left as friends and teachers, and they don't even act like that. So I'm like, who are these teachers, and why are they doing that? It just blows my mind away. So the language people say critical race theory, but the terminology that is actually happening in a lot of schools is critical pedagogy. And what it is this is why conservatives get pushed back a lot because we say critical race theory. But and then so the left, they're able to say, no, it's not. We're not doing that. Right. Yeah, you're technically not teaching Bell's critical race theory, but if you say, so the next time you're in an interview, if you use the term critical pedagogy, they cannot fight with you because that has ideas of critical race theory in it. So when they say, no, it's not in there, they're technically right. However, the practice that you're doing have ideas of some of the critical race theory. And so they don't want to admit that. It truly does. And yes, we know that because I always get this go back and forth with people on Twitter. I'm like, I'm just so over it. I know that critical race theory teaches that race is a social construct. Yeah, it does. But it also talks about the systems, right? And and that part is fine. And it also talks about breaking down systems. Fine. But you can do that in college. The problem is you can't do it properly in K through 12. Like you cannot do that. And so what you have is these teachers interpreting their view of this, breaking down these systems of oppression, and they consider education as that system of oppression. Yeah. And so they're doing crazy things and crazy practices about what that should look like. Yeah. And so, but I have not seen that in my time. However, I do know that some teachers say, and a friend of mine, she had said that she's a history teacher. She's like, oh, I tell my students, America is just, we just oppress other nations, so they'll say things like that. Like I have heard that. Yeah. And now there's another teacher who teaches African-American history with me. It's funny because we share the same curriculum, we created together, but sometimes I'll kind of peep in her classroom just to hear what she's saying. She very much compares slavery, Jim Crow to now. So now that's the original critical race theory. So she's teaching how they would in college. So she's kind of doing it the original, not like this, saying that we're all oppressed. Like she's not doing any of that. But I noticed what she's doing is she's teaching kind of like the original intent of CRT. And I'm like, how is that helpful to compare things to slavery? And I remember she was getting so frustrated because her students didn't get the comparison of her assignment was look around to see if you see any elements of the system of slavery. And so she said her students were really confused by that. And I'm thinking, I'm confused about that. Like, give me an example. What are you talking about? And so she started talking about just where they lived in their environment. And I was just like, huh? Like, so she tries to make things fit. You know what I mean? Like, so I've seen her do that. So now this would not cause her job because it's not what DeSantis, she's not using the verbiage that DeSantis is saying not to use. So teachers can get away with a lot, like even with these bans, because I've seen them do it. Like they're not using oppressor, white supremacy. They're not doing that, but they're using other ways to, you know what I'm saying? So they're sneaking it in there.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing about the bans or legislation with against critical race theory or any of these type of the wokeism, all of that stuff. It is a difficult thing to understand and to stop people from doing, because first of all, they make up a whole new language. It's like you got to learn a whole new vocabulary of what a lot you like what I grew up knowing what racist was or racism was. Like that's not even what that means anymore. Like that it means a whole other different thing. And you are so right. Like now that I know the term pedagogy, because I think I had heard you say, and I was like, let me get on the Googler, let me figure this out. So
it's wokeism. It's all this wokeism. It really is.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
it's the
it's
way
wokeism.
that you present information, that you teach
Mm-hmm.
a subject. It's not
Right, because
teaching the subject, it's the way you teach the subject.
it's the way you teach it, right? Because you can do that with anything. Like I said, we teach the same curriculum because we created together. I
Yeah.
don't teach it the way she does because I don't compare anything to slavery or Jim Crow. Like the only compare if I had to make a comparison, what I did was the stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
When the stereotypes of Jezebel, the stereotypes of Sapphire, which were used during slavery and Reconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I did was I said, okay, so point out anything on TV or caricatures
Mm-hmm.
that resemble those characters that
Mm-hmm.
blacks were portrayed as doing. Actually, this was during the Jim Crow era. But then the people that were emulating those stereotypes were Black people. So I wanted to get them to let them know that you're taking something that was used as something to dehumanize us, but you're making light of that. You're praising those things like Medea, like Cardi
Okay.
B, like
I see.
and then they just picked out different characters that were housewives. Like those are
Mm.
characters. They were able to see that those are characters that these are characters that they use to again dehumanize us. But
Yeah.
we're making light of that, and we're doing it ourselves. White people are
Mm.
not calling us Jezebels. White people are not
Right.
calling you coon. Black people are.
Right.
And so I wanted them to see that these stereotypes are harmful. Like we're doing the same. We are doing the same thing that was done. So we're dehumanizing each other.
Right.
They don't have to do it. We're doing it
Right.
ourselves. So that was my whole point. So if I wanted to compare anything to Jim Crow, that was it. Just the
Yeah.
characters that we are emulating that
Right.
was once meant to harm us, and we're making light of it and doing it ourselves to each
Yeah.
other. So that
Yeah.
would be the only comparison that I've ever done.
That's probably the thing that bothers me the most about the critical race theory or the critical pedagogy or the wokeism, let's just call it that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the psychological part that if you constantly tell a child that they are oppressed or a victim or an
Mm-hmm.
oppressor or
Mm-hmm.
responsible for all of this stuff that has nothing to do with them, you will damage. Like that goes for like any psychologist will tell you this.
Mm-hmm.
If you especially when it's a negative if it's a negative comment like over and over and over again, if you're a child, if you are a human being, that will damage you, and then you will become the thing that you will
Yes.
that reality will that perception will be your reality. And
Yep.
to me, that is the most
Mm-hmm.
that is it's not the history part of it. It is putting these ideas, pounding these ideas into
Mm-hmm.
children, and then
Yes.
looking and expecting them to perform when you have
Mm-hmm.
told them their whole life that
Right.
they're
And you
oppressed.
can't do this. Right. And
Yes, like
you
that
know what
is
else I don't like?
so damaging.
I also don't like when they say, well, the reason why they're successful is despite racism. No, no, they were successful because they did great. They did well in school. They were successful because their
Yeah.
parents made sure that they get there. It doesn't have anything to do with race in 2021. Now, if you would have maybe had this argument when I was in high school or middle school, when it was overt racism, and I went to school in high school in the 90s, and
Mhm.
they didn't sugarcoat anything. Like I grew up in
Yeah.
a very I went to a mixed school,
Mhm.
predominantly white and Cuban in
Mhm.
Miami, and it was inward, and it was you had counselors not wanting to set you up for victory in college.
Oh,
You
wow.
Where do you have that now?
Yeah.
You don't have that. If
It's yeah.
anything, you can get into Harvard, you can get into Cornell,
Hello.
affirmative
Hello.
action. So, and that's a whole other story. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not.
That
Mm-mm.
is probably one of the things that bothers me to a place because it's just so damaging. Like
It is.
it wouldn't even matter if it doesn't matter what you're telling. It doesn't have to be about critical race theory. If it's negative and you're constantly telling a child that, especially, they're going to be the thing that you have put in them. That's how
Yes.
human beings work, you know. And
Right.
so
No, I agree.
yeah, that's probably one of the things that I just that irritates me so bad,
It is
you know.
damaging. It is damaging. And the biggest thing, and people say critical race theory is the biggest threat. You know what I think is the biggest threat? The DEI, the those diversity trainings, and the um yeah, the diversity training that they're doing, and just the just this idea of dumbing down lessons and dumbing down curriculum and
Yeah,
calling everything racist, like racist grading, like it is so damaging to Black students. And
it
that
really
is so frustrating to me, because I can see it in my school. And
mm,
my school is majority Black,
mhm,
but the administrative staff is not. And so
mm,
they're the ones that are putting things like, okay, racist grading. I just feel like that is the worst. And to me, even more destructive than the CRT, it's just this dumbing down of curriculum, the
yeah,
dumbing down of everything. And because everything is racist grading, homework is racist, math is
right.
racist. And
Being on time is racist.
it's so harmful to our children,
Yeah,
especially Black and brown children, so harmful. And
yeah,
my the AP that I was telling you about, my former AP, who was cheering on African American history, he was the main one calling everything racist grading. This is racist. This curriculum is racist.
mm,
Anything that was um, any curriculum that was at a predominantly white school, he called racist. And my question to him was, would you not give your kids homework? Like, would you accept that? Like, would you accept that they don't have calculus and they just stop at algebra or geometry? I don't
mm,
think that would be acceptable. So why would that be acceptable for Black kids? Why would you want us to just settle for that?
yeah.
So
Well,
we are the same. There's no difference. We can learn the same. So I just think
unless you think my skin color
exactly
determines my thinking ability. See,
right,
that's so
right.
unless you really think that,
Unless you really think that.
mm,
Exactly.
what was his
So
response?
yes. I just think it's so harmful. So
Did it?
I'm not my coworker and I were talking about this yesterday, and she also leans. She is funny too, because she leans left, but she's probably more in the middle.
Mhm,
But she's like, this is this all of this equity training, these diversity trainings, this equity curriculum that we're giving to school is just nonsense. And
mm,
I don't know anyone that disagrees with that.
yeah.
So it's destructive.
It is. It really truly is. And now we
Mhm.
have queer theory. Have you heard about that?
No, I have heard different things online, but I
Okay.
have not seen that in action, and that just blows my mind away that this is actually in schools.
Uh,
I can't. It's crazy.
it is. And the thing that besides, you know, just you know, putting these ideas into the minds of children, I truly see the works of Karl Marx, communism, and these ideas coming into America.
Yeah.
Actually, it's been in America. It's
Yes.
been here. That's why it's so like all over the place.
Hmm.
And people, I think people think like, oh, communism will never come to America. I'm like, y'all better wake up and
Right.
smell
It
the
is
coffee.
slowly trickling in.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's like people, that is crazy to me that Americans do not understand what communism in America would look like, because we don't have like, you know, the class system per
Right.
se, you know, so it's not going to look like one, you know, just one thing up here and one thing down there, because
Hmm.
we, you know, we got rich, all kind of people, you know. You could be
Right.
born rich in America, die poor. You
Yes.
could be born poor in America and die rich. So we don't have like permanent classes,
Hmm.
you know, like they did when Karl Marx was you know, talking about these ideas. But you can literally go and read Karl Marx, Mao, Lenin, Stalin. You
Hmm.
can read it and you will hear the exact
The exact
same
verbiage. Yes.
verbiage.
Yes.
And it's like, it, I talk to some Cuban people sometimes, and they have shown me where Castro was saying the exact same
Yeah,
thing, and he was attacking the education system. It's like
the
they
same
know
thing,
the playbook.
identical.
Yeah, it's identical.
Wrong.
And you know, the idea that Americans don't know what this is crazy. But I wanted to make sure we talked about this one thing that you had said, which is what really was fascinating to me. So you had said that, I think I have the quote here. Let me just pull it up. This was like really interesting to me, and I want people to hear your thoughts on this. So there was I believe the conversation was about this teacher. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was about a teacher who was like exposing critical race theory, I believe. And so someone had said to you, or someone had said in the conversation, it obstructs identifying and fixing problems. If you incorrectly identify something as being the result of racism, you won't fix it. I don't think they care, however. I think they are more concerned with the virtue of the battle than the outcome. For example, school choice. And you said, interestingly enough, I have not used the word racism even discussing slavery and now Jim Crow, not on purpose, just haven't seen the need yet. I think some things are just obvious when discussing Jim Crow. When I read that, considering all the things going, all the talk going on in our country these days, I was like, now I need to know more about this. Like
Right.
how being an educator in today with all of this stuff going around, and granted, it's not like it is in your school that it is in others, but how do you avoid just even using the words with everything? I'm so curious about this.
You know, it's funny because it's not even on purpose because
Right.
I just feel like kids are smart
Mm-hmm.
and they understand when something is racist and when something isn't, and you don't have to say it.
Mm.
KKK are racist. Like, why
Right.
do I have to say that?
Right.
Like, there's plenty of examples of them hanging blacks or people that are not white for
Yeah.
specifically for skin color.
Yeah.
Um, it's obvious. Like, and you don't have to make anything about race. You don't have to tell them. Like, again, kids are smart. They can pick it up. Like, if we're
Yeah.
talking about slavery, they know that it's a system.
Yeah.
They know that all countries have had a system of slavery,
Mm-hmm.
that it didn't start off with about race. They understand
Mm.
that. So we
Yeah.
didn't talk about that slave owners are racist because they understood that it was the norm. Like, this
Yeah.
happened. This wasn't something that was extraordinary. It happened everywhere. And then when
Yeah.
Jim Crow, when clearly you had overt acts of racism during
Right.
Reconstruction, and again, you don't have to use the term. And again, it was not even anything deliberate.
Yeah.
They saw examples, but I didn't have to say this is racist.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. Like, kids can critically think, and you don't have to make everything a black and white issue. Some things
Mm.
are obvious, and then some things that they would just have to realize on their own and decide for themselves
Yeah.
if they think this is something that's racist or not. Like, I don't think it's my job to tell them that this is racist, this isn't. So I
Mm.
really want them to practice critical thinking skills
Yeah.
and really determine for themselves, because they're going to have a lot of people in their ear. They have a lot of people in their ear already
Right.
saying, just things on the news.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to add to that voice. I want to be able to allow them to use their critical thinking skills
Yeah.
because they can.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for that. We need more teachers like you who,
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, because in order for them to do that, they have to have the foundation to even know, to even be able to see, like, okay, even though they're not hearing the word racism or racist, they have to have the foundation of those the education to know, okay, well, this is
Yes.
what happened, and then for them to be able to figure these things out for themselves. And
Right.
I
Right.
would I would put money on it that you are highly responsible for them being able to have those critical thinking skills to figure these things out, and having, creating a classroom that they feel comfortable,
They do.
thinking
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
questioning and
Mm-hmm.
doing what you're supposed to do in a classroom.
Yes. And we talk about the hard stuff. Don't get like we
Yeah,
talk about the nitty-gritty, but
right.
I really want to come just be an objective voice, and I want them to have the opinion. We disagree all the time. I
Yeah.
have, and people would be so surprised when I say this, I had probably the most conservative students ever. Like,
Wow.
and they're all, majority of them are African American. Here's my son interrupting.
Oh, it's a mom thing. That's life.
Yes, sir.
That
He's
is
asking
life.
for food. Yeah,
Of course.
but yeah, people would be just they're even in some instances. I feel like they're even more conservative than I am with certain topics about race,
really?
and I'm just blown away just their ability to critical think and not just allowing the media to influence their thinking. So that really makes me excited.
Yeah. Well, that gives me so much hope. Oh my gosh. Can you do me a favor? Can you train all the rest of these crazy teachers too?
What, say that again?
You know what? I said, can you do me a favor? Can you go and train all the rest of these crazy teachers?
You know what, Pete? It's funny because in Twitter class, they're always asking. I'm like, I would love to, but my school would not allow that because they're ultra left.
Oh
Not my school, but just the school system. Because I've been a part of their trainings. I'm like, oh no, they would not want my voice because they have an agenda clearly. So,
but wait a minute, Ayanna Presley said that we needed to uplift more Black voices.
That's what they say.
That's what. I'm sorry.
I want to make a space for that. I really want to do something like that, more of the training, because there's a way you can teach about the hard stuff. You really can, and not allow kids to feel like victims and discouraged. I venture to say that my students don't feel like victims, even though we've talked about like really hard stuff, because I'm always like excited about just the accomplishments. And my favorite thing to talk about is the Reconstruction Era and Black Wall Street that we're doing now. And I keep telling them, like, I overly emphasize, guys, can you believe they did this a year out of slavery? Like, that's mind blowing. Like, they build towns. No one else can do it. They did it. So that is just amazing to me. So anytime we talk about the hard stuff, I always have them focus on the African American. Like, okay, look at his resilience. Like, they didn't care about what was happening around them because it was their norm. Racism was their norm. They didn't cry about it. They just picked up, built, and go. So, and I stress that often. I think it's so important just to stress the resilience of our people, and that's what I try to do with any topic we talk about. I'm always stressing that. So hopefully, I really want teachers to do the same as well. So
yes, it is so important. It is so funny. So when I was on the Dr. Phil show, the expert who came on and said, like critical race theory is like a boogeyman, and y'all just don't want to teach, Black American history. And so by this time, I was very heated.
Right. Yeah. Black teachers don't want to teach about Black parents don't want to hear about Black history. Yeah. Right.
That is absurd. And I was like, it's you who don't want to teach, the true Black American history. And all you want to tell Black people is that, you were a slave, victim of Jim Crow, and you got a couple civil rights. Oh my God. The crowd went wild. They were like, they really supported that. And I was like really shocked because, the Dr. Phil show is not, they're conservatives. So, but I think more people need to hear those things. It's not that, we've been beat in the head, with slavery. There is a lot more to Black American history than just slavery. Even other negative things that happen, but which need to be talked about. But truly, we need more positive Black American history so kids know that yes, that's what you went through, but look at what your ancestors did. Look at what they did.
Exactly.
It is something to be proud of.
Yes.
It's really something to be proud of. Really quick, and then I'll let you go because we've like been over an hour. I want to. I know you have your son.
I love talking to you.
Me too. I trust me, I could talk about this forever, especially with somebody like you who is in it. You know, you're doing this every day.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2015, my family, so I'm originally from Lake City, Florida, and we moved to Connecticut when I was 13. So I'm like half Southern, half Northern. And then I came back to the South later on. But in 2015, my family was honored in Lake City, Florida, in the Martin Luther King parade for my great-great-grandfather. He was born a slave. He bought his freedom. He taught himself how to read, and he acquired over almost 400 acres of land that my family still lives on today.
Wow.
Yes. When
That's
I was
amazing.
listening to this,
Wow.
the proud, I was so proud. I was like, that's what I come from.
Yeah.
I didn't dwell on the fact that he was a slave. I was proud of what he did after he got out of that. That is one hell of an accomplishment. Like, my God, what you have to be made of to be able to get through that. And that's why, even with you, like when you were going through what you went through, during your state of depression, and you created something anyway. Like, that is what these kids need to see.
That's what we do. Exactly.
Yes. And it's like, you don't just lay down. We never did that. That is not what Black Americans, that's not what we never were victims. We never saw ourselves that way.
Right.
Yes, it was tough. Yeah. And I never lived it. I'm not trying to even act like, when I say we, I had,
right.
I'm reaping all the benefits,
It's funny because I always tell my students that when they say we, I'm saying, not we, they did it. You didn't do anything.
Right. Because I sure enough, I didn't do it. I don't even know if I would have made it with this here. My mind would have been, it would have been a mess.
Yes.
But so I am just so thankful for educators like yourself who say, no, that's not how this is going to be taught. Not in front of me, not when I have the ability to make a difference in these children's lives. So I just commend you so much. The children's lives that you touch, they will forever remember, because their peers who don't get a teacher like you, they're going to listen to how they see themselves and listen to how your kids, how they see themselves. And it's going to be two totally different realities.
Yes. Wow.
And that is legacy. You are helping to, help them create their legacy, which is what I think all teachers should be doing.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate this. I'm so glad we were able to have this conversation.
Yeah. And I would love to do it again. I know, like, we kind of,
we have to do it again.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again. So, but thank you so much for coming on. I know the world is going to love this talk that we had today. And I look forward to talking with you more in the future.
Yes, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yes. Before you go, please tell everyone how they can find you online and give your website to your organization.
Okay, well, you can find me on Twitter at FavoriteTeach11. And also, I do have a support group for parents of children with special needs, putting the pieces together. It is puttingthepieces.together.org. You can find me there.
Thank you so much, Donique. You have a wonderful night. And tell your son we said hi.
I sure will. He is wanting food now.
Thank
you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.